I do understand that everything from his hugely impactful doping test failure to his inability to accept a loss have turned a lot of people off TJ Dillashaw in recent years, and to be honest, he has certainly said and done enough to warrant a lot of the criticism that surrounds him. But to me, as far as his actual fighting skills go, Dillashaw has been a favourite of mine for years now, and though the manner in which he lost his bantamweight title to USADA was as bad a look as can be, the intrigue of seeing this 35-year-old champion who never lost his belt return was something I was actually pretty hyped for, because across from him stood Cory Sandhagen, who is without question one of the most interesting strikers in the sport. And honestly, as much as the stylistic pairing of Dillishaw and Sandhagen was always going to be great, I did originally prefer the idea of seeing TJ test himself against an Aldo or an Edgar first, or someone else who would hit that perfect mix of big name value while coming from a similar generation. Because at 135 pounds, where speed is paramount, you do expect to see the decline, the physical decline, come in earlier than the higher weight classes. And though TJ has always been well-rounded, going into last weekend's clash against the incredibly modern Sandhagen, I did think that Cory's time spent inside the octagon, his youth, his sharpness, I did think that these would be the things that would give him a noticeable edge over this returning version of Dillishaw once the octagon doors close. But when Fight Night came around, the levels that Dillishaw had previously shown himself to be above the competition back during his original run still displayed him today as enough of a force to be highly competitive. And I know that sounds like quite a roundabout way of saying that TJ looked good, but yeah, for all intents and purposes, he looked pretty damn great in there. And yes, I scored the bout for Sandhagen. I think it was 3-2 in his favour. But make no mistake folks, this was a highly competitive and unbelievably captivating matchup. I honestly loved this fight from start to finish, and no matter how surprised I was by the scorecards, or at least mildly surprised, I can definitely live with a TJ Dillashaw victory here. It was by no means a robbery, and in reality, the only thing Sandhagen is losing out here is a title shot. I don't think that his stock has been really impacted, given the fight's close nature and his overall performance. It's a big loss, but it's not a really damaging one. He likely knows what he needs to work on. Aside from that quick submission at the hands of Aljamain Sterling, this was his first drawn-out defeat during his UFC run, a bout that could well stand as a bit of valuable learning experience for Cory. On a side note, if you're enjoying this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all of our latest uploads, before leaving a comment to let YouTube's algorithms know that we are fast becoming one of the best MMA channels on the platform. But what exactly did we learn about TJ Dillashaw from this fight? Well, considering the time off, considering his age, considering that the last time we saw him he was getting knocked out by Henry Cejudo in 30 seconds after an ill-advised dip down to flyweight, yeah, I do think that TJ Dillashaw looked awesome. I think he showed us that his style is built to last, and that even though he was edged out by Dominic Cruz in 2016, I believe that his strength of schedule has been enough to prove him as one of the two bantamweight GOATs as far as this division is concerned, alongside Dominic Cruz. He didn't go out there and comprehensively beat down Sandhagen, far from it, but when you consider the fact that he came back after a 2-year absence and gave perhaps the most advanced striker in the division a real battle, yeah, I was pretty impressed. Again, I do think that Cory won the fight. I thought he busted TJ up, took 3 rounds, and tipped the damage count heavily in his favour by the time the 5 rounds were through. But with an eye on the inevitable clash between the divisional champion Aljamain Sterling and the divisional champion Petr Yan, it's clear that Dillashaw will be the one to face the winner of that fight. And sure, while I do feel as though Yan will thoroughly beat Sterling down, I would also warn the world not to be too quick to discount the ever-improving Funkmaster in the rematch. Indeed, his title-winning matchup against Yan the last time around was a mess, and a fight that he was losing regardless of the nature of the stoppage. But don't let Aljo's position as an easy target distract you from his merits as a fighter. Don't forget that he was the last man to defeat Cory Sandhagen, and I do think that Dillashaw would certainly have a tough challenge in front of him with either man. That said, I really truly believe in this guy's greatness, and I don't think there's a bantamweight on this roster he couldn't beat on his night. He first showed himself to be a great fighter through his destruction of the seemingly untouchable Renan Barão, doubling down on that win in the rematch, shocking the world twice. Indeed, he was handed a setback against Dominic Cruz, as the legendary former champion pulled off a comeback of his own. But those 2 bounce-back victories over John Lineker and Rafael Assunção showcased some of the cleanest work you are ever likely to see inside an octagon. At that point in time, TJ was mixing it all up to perfection, gelling his creatively tinged Bang Muay Thai striking, together with some incredible timing on the takedowns to reduce these legitimate top 10 contenders to very little. And then he managed to do the double over Cody Garbrandt, a man whose own showing against Dominic Cruz had many pegging him as the future of the division, the future star, the young dangerous talent who would lead this division into its new era. Dillashaw proved conclusively that his time as the greatest 135-pound fighter on the planet had not yet expired, that it would take an almighty effort to remove him from the wheel. And as we all know, it took a 2-year suspension from USADA to do just that. But based on his showing against Sandhagen, it's still pretty clear that this guy is an elite fighter within this bantamweight top tier. Sure, he might have lost a touch of speed or reflexes, but in terms of what he can bring to the table opposite the Yans, the Sterlings, the Fonts and the Sandhagens of the world, I'd wager that TJ is very much a threat to the belt. Now that said, personally, out of this division's finest, I would favour Petr Yan to get his hand raised against him, as well as Sandhagen to probably finish him in a rematch. However, I don't think either prediction is clear cut, not at all. I would not be surprised in the slightest to see TJ find his way back to that gold belt, I really wouldn't. He's one of the single greatest fighters of his era, an innovator, and even though it's odd to say it, an electric new addition to this already crowded top 10. But what did you make of the return of TJ Dillashaw last Saturday night, and the narrow victory he earned? And how far do you think he can go within this bantamweight title picture? Do let us know your opinions in the comment section below, we always love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thank you for watching.